I just did a video on how many superpowers there are in today's multipolar world. It got a lot of comments and sparked some controversy. So let me explain the 7 reasons why America is no longer a superpower. The term superpower just does not fit the reality of today's world. Power is more evenly distributed. Resources and influence is held by many countries, not just one dominant superpower. America arguably is not even number 1. Let me offer you 7 reasons why. 5 relate to the factors that define why one country is a superpower against the rest. And 2 are reasons that explain why America has fallen from its number 1 position. On the economy, America is the top power in the world in terms of nominal GDP. But this statistic is inflated by currency valuations and by all the activities that are counted in a measure of gross domestic product that are not really that productive. Lawyers' fees, expensive health systems, all of the rest. By other measures that look at what people can really do with their money, something that's called purchasing power parity. By that measure, China is the number 1 economy in the world, and really by quite a margin. On population, America is not the number 1 country in the world. It has over 330 million people, and that is a lot. It is a big country. But China and India both have 1.4 billion people, and the European Union zone has about 400 million people. It also experienced declining life expectancy, remarkably for such a rich country. Its population is not so healthy, it's not so cohesive, and critically in terms of power projection, the capabilities of that population are not so good. Russia, with half the population, produces twice the number of engineers, while America imports a lot of its scientific and technological talent from China and India and other countries, including from the 1990s, the former Soviet Union state. It is not growing its own with a good education system. Sometimes people talk about China having problems with aging and demographic problems, but aging is a phenomenon that affects the entire world. The entire world has been aging for 150 years. The real question is, how do societies adapt to aging? America, with its decrepit health system and its dysfunctional social welfare system, shows signs of not being so well equipped to do that. On the 3rd factor of territory, again, America is clearly not the number 1 country. Russia is the largest territorial country in the world. Yes, America is gifted with remarkable natural resources, but this in itself does not protect its superpower status. There is an argument put by the geopolitical strategist Peter Zeihan that the unique geographical resource endowments of America will ensure that it simply cannot be displaced from superpower status. But there are a lot of question marks around that argument. One other qualification to territory is the fact that America is protected by 2 oceans and also projects its territory out to approximately 800 military bases all around the world. That brings us to the 4th key factor, which is military power. America arguably is the most militaristic society or government that there ever has been. It spends by multiple factors more than any other country on military spending. For all but 16 or 17 years of its entire existence, it has been at war, and many of those wars have been expeditionary wars rather than wars of defence, wars defending its own territory. Despite spending so much on military power, the budget that you spend on military power is not as important as the prowess and the victories that it brings. And America's track record on winning wars has not been so good. Some people say it has not won a significant war since 1945. And arguably its vast military spending, its extensive military bases, its large aircraft carriers, its enormous air fleet, its nuclear arsenal, and all the rest have become hollow assets. There have been arguments put that Russia has surpassed America on quite a few critical technologies, most critically hypersonic missiles and electronic warfare. In some ways, all that spending, all those military assets of America may have become a hollow asset, sucking up an enormous amount of its budget, but not achieving effective specific objectives. The American-Russian military analyst Andrei Martynov argues in The Real Revolution in Military Affairs that, in fact, American military might is something of an illusion. It has not delivered, if you like, battlefield result. And moreover, Colonel Douglas Macgregor, like a former commanding officer in the United States Army, has argued that the American way of war has been superseded by events. It is now a very expensive, very ineffective military machine. Finally, we have soft power. And America has enormous soft power, and arguably it is number one in the world in terms of its cultural presence. There is Netflix everywhere, there is Hollywood everywhere. But there is a downside to that as well. A lot of that cultural power looks out at the world with extraordinary insularity, and it just views the entire world through an American eyes. Ultimately, the rest of the world will decide, that's not my life, that's not my culture. The former Singaporean diplomat and ambassador to the United Nations, Kishore Mahbubani, has recently commented that when he watches American television news in hotel rooms in America, he is astonished by the insularity of American culture. And ultimately, that insularity also undermines the diplomatic influence of America. America's diplomatic power, its soft power in both culture and diplomacy, is diminishing. And the difficulties encountered by America in persuading the global South to join the economic sanctions and other diplomatic activities against Russia in the current conflict, and the growing statements from leaders around the world that are resisting American lectures to other countries about what to do, suggests that American soft power is not what it used to be, and perhaps is no longer number one. Ultimately, there is too much human potential, human diversity, human capacity and vitality in the rest of the world. China and India together have 2.8 billion people. There is a 4,000 kilometre circle, radial circle called the Yuxi Circle, in which 4.3 billion people live, and the energy and the vitality, the growing wealth, the growing diversity, the growing cultural expression of this zone will ultimately overwhelm the world of American Netflix culture. The American century is over. Why has the United States of America fallen from its dominant unipower, hyperpower, lone superpower status, which it acquired in 1991? I think there are two big reasons. First of all, there is the unreality of American exceptionalism. Americans and American leaders consistently espouse that America is an exceptional nation, that it sees further than other countries, that it has capacities that are greater than other countries. But this was never true, and it led America to misunderstand the world around it. Famously, in the 1990s, Karl Rove, George W. Bush's advisor, said that America makes its own reality, but he was kidding himself. This delusion of American exceptionalism found its most crazed expression in the 1990s. It was sustained through Obama's presidency. It was shaken by Donald Trump, rocked by the defeat of America in Afghanistan, and is walking confusedly in Joe Biden's presidency. Arguably, it is bleeding out in Ukraine. American exceptionalism is over. America needs to adjust to a more modest status in the world. And the second reason, the seventh reason why America is no longer a superpower, is the shadow of empire. Americans don't believe they have an empire, but they do. And this empire imposes enormous costs on America. It sustains 800 military bases. It has occupying forces in Germany and Japan and all over the world. It costs America enormously in high technology weapons and the diversion of so much of its leadership class to foreign policy adventures rather than domestic policy solutions, ultimately keeping the oversized American empire and denying the reality of that empire, pretending that America is a republic, not an empire, saps its strength, saps its capabilities, and has undermined its unipolar status. You can't be the leader of a unipolar world and claim you're not an empire. For these 7 reasons, the world faces a real challenge with America. How are the other powers in the world, the other citizens of the world, going to persuade America to accept a status of equality, a more modest status in the world, to be just one great nation among many? America could accept this more modest status in a multipolar world, and the world would be a more peaceful, prosperous and happy place. America will need to forsake beliefs about its supremacy, its exceptionalism, and forswear its long history of war and aggression, its desire to dominate the world. The great problem of statecraft and of citizenship across the world, facing all world leaders and citizens across the world, is how to persuade America to accept this more modest status in the world. A reduction in status without a devastating war would not be a humiliation for America. It would not be the destruction of America. It could well be the rebirth of the American Republic, even if it means the end of the American Empire. Equality with other nations, a modest role in a multipolar world offers hope to the American people, even if it means less power for America and Atlantic elites.